When we build, architecture-wise, it was a good fee, but when we go to build, we are a premium builder. And so our general contracting fee is usually more than kind of your standard or average builder. So yes, that's sort of the long answer to get to yes, for sure. And because it's like that's sort of coordination and timing and any of our really big single-family custom homes that are high-end, to get to the expectations are very high for those projects.
Welcome to the Property Podcast, where great minds in real estate get together. Welcome back to the Property Podcast. Today, we're joined by a man who doesn't just draw the dream. He actually picks up the hammer to build it. He is a licensed architect, a general contractor, an adjunct professor, and the co-founder of the award-winning firm F9 Productions. Please welcome the positive reaction himself, Lance Kayco.
Wow, thank you for the intro. I love that. That was extremely unique, Angelina. Thank you.
Of course, Lance. So you often talk about bridging the gap between concept and reality. What is the one beautiful architectural feature that most architects love to draw, but every builder, including yourself, secretly hates to construct?
Spiral stairs. That's pretty simple. Yeah, because I just did that. I mean, I've thought about that. I've wanted to do one for a very long time. And since we wear both hats, as you so graciously introduced me as an architect who also builds, I was taught that lesson of holy cow, this is very difficult anything that is curved is really hard to build. For folks, it's just difficult. Even in this age where we can like 3D print and CNC machines and all of that. So spiral stairs.
Wow. But why? Where's the challenge? Because you mentioned the curve. Why? What makes it so difficult?
Yeah, well, you're trying to so most steel as it comes out of the mill is straight, right? So it's at a 90-degree angle in kind of every direction. So what you do is, so like the spiral staircase, ours was a curving one. So I think it went like 135-degree kind of a curve in the middle of this 3-story silo that we built for these folks in a custom home we did for them. And so you're taking that, what you're having to do is you're having to take that piece of steel and you're having to curve it in a plan view and an elevation view. So it's a compounding curve. And then there's just material limitations. So like our staircase, it went up 3 stories, right? So even if you just go for one flight of stairs, chances are you're only going to be able to, you're going to have 2 pieces of steel curved. And then where they meet, that was our issue, was trying to get the meeting of them to blend really nicely. And we had to have the fabricator come out, I think 3 or 4 additional times.
Wow.
During the whole process. So just to try to make that blend look really good. So that's, for me anyway, what I've found to be probably one of the most difficult things that I've ever designed and then built. So I have a lot of empathy for the field and other builders where I go, yep. Here's a curved staircase. Yes, it's really cool, but this is going to be difficult.
So do you charge like twice as much for that particular job?
When we build, architecture-wise, it was a good fee, but when we go to build, we are a premium builder. And so our general contracting fee is usually more than kind of your standard or average builder. So yes, that's sort of the long answer to get to yes. For sure, and because it's like that's sort of coordination and timing and any of our really big single-family custom homes that are high-end, to get to the expectations are very high for those projects, not only from us but especially from the owners. And one of the problems I think that we're just kind of dealing with in society right now is it's twofold. One, and I'm guilty of it. Number one is the HGTV vacation of building. I've been on HGTV 3 times, and I understand what happens behind the scenes and then what happens in front of the scenes. And the way it's presented on TV is, yes, they presented like that there's difficulties and struggles, but it condenses the whole process. You just don't really know all of the details and yelling matches and other things that go on behind. You don't hear about like the subcontractor who couldn't make it to the job site and then the owner's pissed because it's like hey, why didn't they show up? And I go, welcome. It's like kind of like welcome to my world. I don't know why they didn't show up. Let me see. And then the anger kind of goes away once we find out like, oh yeah, Jim's dad died, or their car broke down on the way to it, or they're sick because they're working with their body all of the time.
Yeah.
So I think there's that problem with it, just managing people and all of the issues. But then there's the final product, and here's where the second part comes in is, we hold these little devices in our hands all day long, phones, these smartphones. They're perfect. They're perfect engineering boxes, right? Like the precision of them is so perfect.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of folks that just forget back to point number one of like, it's still sweaty, dirty men who are putting their lives and their limbs on the line mostly for building your building by hand. And it's like, this isn't a machine doing it. We will try to get it to a machine finish level at the end, but that's really why we charge what we charge for custom building with folks. Is because we know we need a cushion at the end, because there's going to be stuff at the end for us to get it to a polished level, a machine-like level, to where there's just a lot of incidental things that happen, little nicks in drywall, cabinet defects, trim defects, stuff where I can't say it was that sub who wrecked it, it was me who wrecked it, it was you who wrecked it, owner. Nobody knows. And it's just like, well, Lance is just planning for 1 to 2% of his general contracting budget at the end of a project to just solve problems out of his pocket, so everybody walks away at least with a decent taste in their mouth.
That's pretty impressive. Thank you. Alrighty, so you have designed everything from massive commercial real estate projects to the Atlas tiny house. In your experience, does a smaller footprint like the tiny home actually lead to a bigger life for the inhabitant, or is this just a great marketing?
Yeah, the first one that we did is such a fascinating story. So the first tiny house that we did, it was actually called Blake's Tiny House. And the whole idea with it was going to be from our friend Blake, who he's just a continual pessimist in life. And we were like, come on, you gotta, like, you're a single guy, you don't have any children to worry about. What's the problem here? This was during the Great Recession. He had a job, which was hard to get during the Great Recession in the architecture community. The whole idea with designing it and building it with him, he didn't go through with it. We went through with it ourselves. But the whole idea was to enhance his life, to get him out of this sort of shell. Well, we ended up designing it, building it. That's where the HGTV comes in. We were on. You could even look at the episode, season 1, episode 13 of Big House, Tiny Living. You still watch it. It's pretty funny. But we ended up taking it, and after we finished it, it lived at one of the world's first tiny house hotels up in Lyons, Colorado, which is just west of us by about 10 miles where we operate out of. And a lot of people loved it. It definitely influenced also because it won an international architecture award, a lot of other tiny house builders and designers to try to make structures like ours that really blurred the line between inside and outside. A lot of glass, a lot of transparency, but physically too, with foldable decks, awnings, stuff like that, to expand the living space outward, basically, to have this sort of transformer like building. And but ultimately then, it lasted two years at the tiny house hotel, and then we put it up for sale. And a couple from New York City, Manhattan, the city, they flew out, they bought it from us, and we go, what are you going to do? And they go, we're going to travel the country. They're like, that's what we're going to do for the next couple of years now. We're just going to take this self-contained home and travel the country. And I would hope that they had such an experience, like the opposite experience of what the previous tiny houses that were being designed and built prior to us getting in the game, which were just kind of like our custom RVs with little tiny windows. And that was our whole idea with being you talked about being a positive reactionary. We're like, that seems like a negative, not the best kind of tiny house, what it could be. Why don't we do the opposite and try to enhance people's lives with just better design?
Wow. That's pretty amazing though. And you have to be you need to have a little bit of courage to do that, because I'd rather go for stability and be in one place than, go on a venture like you did. Yeah, great. Alrighty, so you are a pro fisherman and an architect. In fishing, you need patience and the right bait. In architecture, you need precision and the right client. What has a boat day out on the water taught you about handling high pressure construction site?
Well, it's my release. I'm very extroverted during the week.
Yeah.
This is a perfect example of extroversion. Like I already did a podcast. I already did an interview for our podcast prior to ours. Now I'm on your show, and I'm talking to clients. I'm running around to job sites as the builder, talking to all the subcontractors. I've met with like 3 already this morning.
Wow.
I'm taking calls constantly. By the time the weekend comes, I need the opposite to happen. Otherwise, I know I'm going to be completely out of balance become Monday, and then I won't have my patience. So really, I'm glad you focused on the patience part. What it does is it forces me to slow down. And one thing I'm trying to do and like infuse into discussions like this, and then hopefully the world, is like, I think we can all use a little slow maxing in our lives. Everything's speeding up. Like the earth is literally supposedly, going faster every year type of thing as it spins around the axis and stuff like that. Plus we just, we're in the age of over information, if anything. So for me, it's a reminder of, hey, good job. You got through the whole week. Now you're out of patience. So instead of coming in on Monday with still no patience at all and just kind of like exhausted, I need to reset and get back to very slow patience, just like watching my line, walking, being calm, those sorts of things. So that's what it does for me. Is it's a balance. There's definitely a yin and yang in life, and that's my way of balancing out as a professional.
That's actually pretty interesting, because I am pretty much the same. I do exactly the same. Like I have to have a little space for myself, and like in the evenings, because my day are so filled with so many things happening, and so I do need like that kind of moment to to breathe, to really kind of like release all the stress. I usually do it like every day, at the end of the day, as opposed to just the weekends. But I like your way of actually dealing with the everyday stress.
Yeah, I know, right? And I talked about balance, but really, the other thing too is I've been trying to just plant the seed in folks' heads, your listeners, you maybe, is what about work-life balance? I don't like that phrase, because as a visual person, most of us are visual people. As soon as I hear work-life balance, I go, there's some scales. Like, is there a scale that this is playing with? Is like, you can't have a perfect work-life balance. What it really is it comes down to work-life harmony, I think. Are you harmonious with your work and your life? Do they talk to each other? Are you an entrepreneur such that you can make it to all of your children's baseball games or outings from daycare or school or stuff like that? Can you, in between meetings, are you going for just a quick walk and being a little bit more harmonious with yourself?
That's pretty great to hear, because like I'm in your same position. So and yes, you're right. You do need some time to carve out some time for yourself in between. Great. So with your background in sustainable design builds like the Eastwatch Retreat, where do you think the average homeowner is wasting the most money today when trying to build a green home?
Solar panels. Piece of cake. Nobody wants to hear that, but that's the truth. So solar panels, not to get too conspiratorial, but like this is the truth about them. And it's an empirical fact. If you were an inventor and you made a solar panel that had 30% efficiency and you brought it to the US Patent Office, they would instantly classify it as top secret, and they would take it away from you. Because if a solar panel is designed to be over 20% efficient, they just grab it, and they're not interested in really solving these problems, right? The existing solar panels that we have, even though the efficiency is getting better, but like the best ones only get like 2021. And so like those two things are true, and they only last 10 to 15 years. And you can't actually get the payback from them if you're putting solar panels on your house just to feel good. I get it. I buy it all day long. I'm not opposed to them whatsoever. I mean, my last house with my wife and I had solar panels on it. Were our utility bills lower? Yeah, but like, could we have afforded $40 extra a month? Because that's really all it was doing. It was just like, it's like cutting the bill in half, I guess, 40 versus 80 type of thing. So the really shiny sparkles of the green movement are the ones I recommend people do not focus on. So that's solar panels, that's wind turbines, that's really like these sort of sophisticated niche technologies. 90 to 95% of the sustainability problem is solved during the design process and during the construction documentation and detailing process. And that just starts with the biggest one is like orientation. So if we are like with Eastwatch you talked about, or any of the other sort of, we call them the compass series, Northwatch, Eastwatch, Westwatch, and all of that. If we are given the opportunity to design and maybe build a house for a client on a raw piece of land that has never been touched, and if we aren't siting it properly to where we're trying to capture all of that beautiful free sunlight and heat in the winter and then block out the bad stuff in the summer, then we're not doing our job. So you can solve 90% of the sustainability problem with just orienting the building properly on the site if you're in the northern hemisphere. It's the opposite in the southern hemisphere. And then then you start dialing it in from there. Are we putting most of the glass on the south side versus only select locations on the north side? Because north light is very good, but it's good for like task lighting, office lighting. That's how our office is oriented. All the windows are on the north. Most of the windows are on the north, and we have this beautiful northern natural light that comes in, minimizing east and west openings. And then there's the detailing of like insulation is pretty cheap. When you look at an insulation line item in a big multi-million-dollar budget, it's like 1% of the budget, or even 0.5%. Like it's not that much. So to super insulate buildings is a very small thing you can do to solve the problem, making sure that they're sealed up properly, that you're spray foaming rim boards and all of that kind of good stuff. A lot of, because people, they're always, I get another question too from potential clients, and they go like, well, we want super insulated triple pane windows. I'm like, why? Well, we want to be as energy efficient as possible. And I go, well, the thing about the green, this whole green movement, I tell them, is like the ICC, the International Energy Code Council, IECC, they're actually pretty much at LEED silver standards anyway, just by default prescriptions of what we have to do for buildings. And I reassure them that like, you're going to kind of be there no matter what. Yeah. And we can look at solar panels and all the fancy stuff at the end, but they often get nixed because the folks do the math and they go, this isn't worth it.
Interesting. Very interesting. And out of curiosity, so if you were to build an energy efficient building, do you still think that it's not worth having like a solar panel?
Do I still think it's worth it?
Yeah, because you were saying before, like if I were to go back, like you were mentioning about your property, correct? That you kept building half, like from $40 or whatever it is, and clearly it's not worth it to have all that stuff put on top of your roof or whatever. But if you're talking about 300 unit building, what are your thoughts on that? Would you actually install solar panel
on a 300 unit multifamily building?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't. Those are the single family stuff is where it's like yes to solar panels if they can afford it. Mm-hmm. For the reason being, it's not that we're trying to be green heroes. It's actually a sovereignty thing, in my opinion. It's a catastrophe aversion. So in Colorado, for example, mm-hmm. lately we've been having a lot of massive planned power outages. Because we had these huge wildfires in 2020. It's called the Marshall wildfires. It was unprecedented on the plains, not even in the mountains. And so this huge neighborhoods burned down, and we're in a drought right now. And so at one of our job sites that we just finished a big interior remodel, that they did put in solar panels on top and a Tesla wall pack and all of that. I'm thankful they did, and they are too. But it wasn't about like trying to be green heroes or anything. It was, wow, we had power shut down 2 times by Xcel Energy on purpose because they didn't want to have a repeat of the Marshall wildfire. Because what happened is like the power lines got tipped over in the wind, and then they caused an electrical spark, and then there was a huge fire. And with the drought we're in right now, we're in a red flag warning. You can't have campfires or anything like that. But for the multifamily question is, really, that's sort of no offense, it's not the best question for that typology because there's always there's a real tight budget with any multifamily project. The developer is in control. There's a bottom line to it. And unless they're seeing a big federal or state incentive from the government to get some tax rebates or something, it's just not going to happen. So it comes down to the bottom line for those guys. And we haven't seen any. We do a lot of multifamily. We haven't seen any multifamily folks asking for that because they're already cutting everything else to try to even make this building pencil and get off the ground.
Interesting. Thank you for your views, your insights. So you've received a lot of accolades recently, including being a 2025 C-Level Executive Award honoree. Looking back at the kid who started with an associate's in building construction, what is the one unlearnable skills that has been the most responsible for the growth of the F9 Productions?
Be brilliant at the basics. Just very simple stuff. Very, very simple stuff. Try to, and then that leads into our 9 principles, and one of them is communicate. So when Alex and I first started the firm like 17 years ago now, one of the first projects that he won, it was a dispensary for marijuana in Boulder, because that's the state I live in. And they picked us, and Alex goes, "Whoa, how many?" The owner was like, he told us about how many other architects and stuff he interviewed, and I was like, there was cheaper ones, there was more expensive ones, and he asked, he was like, "Why did you go with us?" And the owner ended up telling Alex, he goes, "You did 3 things for us that everybody else didn't." He goes, "Number 1, you were responsive. You answered all of our right away. Phone calls, texts, emails. And second 2, you were on time." Basic, really basic stuff. Just be on time or a little bit early before a meeting. And then the third one was you underpromised and you over-delivered. I'm like, well, there you go. Like that's just telling the truth about like the reality. Like we just lost a project that I'm actually thankful we did, because the other competing architects were saying they could get done in 4 weeks, and we're like, nope, this is going to take like 8 to 12 weeks. We've been down this road a million times, and if you want to go with somebody who's promising the moon and they're only going to deliver not the moon, they're just going to get into low orbit, then go with them. But we are not those type of people. So yeah, just being brilliant at the most basic things in life is kind of everything. And I'm just shocked as I'm a 43-year-old man. I can't believe, as the more professionals I work, so-called professionals, right, is like that you work with, about how bad they are. Just the most basic, simple kind of things in life.
That's very insightful. Like I would have never thought those were your principles. Like, and it makes a lot of sense. It does. So thank you so much for sharing your story, your background, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure here.